Hey everybody, I'm Chelli Pumphrey and I'm the founder and clinical director of Trilogy Holistic Mental Health. And today we have our wonderful Reiki, yoga, and tarot person extraordinaire, Alexi Neal, with us. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the healing services that she offers with Reiki and a really unique offering called Embodied Tarot. So welcome, Alexi.
Thank you. Excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had Reiki at our practice for a while with different providers. And this is our first time of bringing somebody in to talk to offer embodied tarot too. So I look forward to hearing a little bit more about what that's all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So why don't we start with talking about Reiki first?
Okay.
Just tell us a little bit about what Reiki is and how you let's just start with that. What is Reiki?
Yeah. So I was trained in the Usui style of Reiki, which is a traditional style from Japan. And the main theory behind it is that there is this life force in the universe that moves through and surrounds and is an inherent part of everything that we see. And this life force energy is very creative, it's generative, it's healing. And so practitioners, when we are attuned, what's being created is the ability to actually just concentrate and channel that. So it's not something that is being created from me as a healer. And I really appreciate this because it kind of ditches any sort of hierarchical view of healing and fixing. But it's not something that I am creating, but rather something that we all have access to, that I'm helping to focus in a particular way, so that your body and your energy field can receive it. And because this energy is at the level of vibration and light and all of that, it is working with that level inside of us, which is inherently connected to all of our tissues and bones and the very physical structures, but also to just the energy with which we move through the world. Even our thought processes and our patterns and all of these things are interwoven with our energy systems, and particularly with our nervous system. It has a huge impact on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, sometimes people ask, why do you offer energy work in a mental health practice? And, we clearly, Trilogy is all about focusing on the mind, body, and spirit. And, I'm also a Reiki practitioner, and I got into it because I've always felt energy. I can feel the energy in a room. I can feel the energy of a person. And I think truly all of us have our feelers up. Like if we really were connecting into it, we'd be more aware of the energy that we feel. And so sometimes I like to say to a person, like, have you ever been in a really good mood, and you go into a room and there's somebody in there, and all of a sudden, like, you got chills on your body, or you just feel like something's not right, or you feel afraid and you need to leave. That's energy. That, like, there's no conversation going on. You're just walking in and feeling something, but we're so good at dismissing that.
We're good at dismissing it, not giving it the power that it really deserves when we have those embodied reactions. And I think too, a lot of what many of us struggle with, where we would seek out mental health services too, comes from a high level of sensitivity. It can kind of land on one side or the other, either a sense of disconnection or a high level of sensitivity that we're not actually processing very well. And Reiki can be a really awesome way of tuning into, like, what is it that I'm picking up on that may be impacting? And maybe it's coming from inside of me and is something that wants to be processed and healed or released or whatever it is. And maybe it is environmental. And then we can start setting boundaries and being really conscious about our energy in that way. And yeah, Reiki can be an awesome way to create awareness of how we are relating to the energy within us and around us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one thing that I recommend for clients is, you can, at the very least, if you do a Reiki session, you're going to leave feeling relaxed. Like,
Yes.
when you say, like, that's
Yeah.
probably, at the very least, that's what you'll feel.
Yeah, because this energy is only healing.
Yeah.
Like that's like there are moments when that healing does look like releases, you
Mhm.
know, that can express through the body in various ways. But the baseline of what this energy wants to do when it enters into your energy field is create that ease and calm so that the body's natural healing responses can happen. You know, when we get into that rest and digest mode of our nervous system, our body actually has a ton of magic inherent in it, you know, that can awaken and help. So that is the very first thing. At the very least, that is going to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, can you speak about some of the other experiences that somebody may have during a Reiki session?
Yeah, you know, a lot of people report feeling tingling or cool or warm sensations, you know, and that makes so much sense. Like as energy moves through the body, there can be these sort of sensory pings that go off. And also, though, it's true that like some people have different ways of relating to energy, and that's true for both practitioners and people that receive it. Sometimes it's sensory, sometimes, you know, as your mind starts to float off in that relaxed state, you're seeing color, you're seeing images, seeing those sorts of things. And, you know, sometimes it is just the mind doing its thing and processing, like almost like it does in dreams. But sometimes it is this like things being brought to our awareness, brought to our attention. Emotions can definitely come up. You know, we talk about breaking that word down. Emotions are energy in motion. So that can definitely happen where like there can be surges of, and I mean, you know, it can run the gamut of like a surge of feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to go do something with this right now. And then that wave kind of passes, you know, and also surges of joy, surges of love, laughter happens, tears happen, you know. And everybody, like I said, everybody relates to it a little bit differently, and it really depends on what's happening in the nervous system. The other piece of it that I just, even as a practitioner of this, still just find so amazing is like the physical change that can happen, where places that were really tense and tight without even touching them, and with the distance stuff we're doing right now, not even the same room with them, and those parts are easing, because so often the source of pain in our physical body, sometimes it does have a very structural reason for it, and other times it isn't so structural. Other times it is a place that our mind is storing some stress, or that our nervous system has tightened in order to protect us a little bit more. So yeah, there's a
Yeah, absolutely.
lot of impacts it can have.
Yeah. And I think it's such a powerful complementary um, healing modality for people who are in therapy, especially when you're dealing with trauma or a lot of stress or anxiety, because, you know, for one, you can go in and you don't have to talk about everything that happened to you. This is energy, and you can lay
Yes.
there and just receive and
Yeah.
allow these things to kind of flow through you, which, you know, sometimes with trauma, like, you know, the one of the quotes, Bessel van der Volt, Bessel or Peter Levine say we have issues in our tissues. And,
Yeah.
you know, so the point is, like, trauma is stored in our bodies. And I also believe trauma is stored just energetically as well. And
Yeah.
we have a really hard time verbalizing what happens to us when it's stored in our nervous system. So Reiki is a way to reset the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of the nervous system that calms us down. And often with people who have PTSD or a lot of anxiety, that's constantly revved up. You're never in that relaxed state. So Reiki can definitely bring that on board for you. And it can also help just release some of these more energetic level traumas that are being held in the body and in this energetic realm as well, just to make your healing happen on all levels. So I love
Yeah.
that, you know, I love to see the progress people make when they do Reiki along with their therapy.
Absolutely. And like our bodies and our energy systems have this amazing inherent wisdom. And I love tapping into these spaces where we're really letting the body do what it is ready to do. and that can feel very different when we're working with trauma, of like, we don't even have to go to the heart of where it's stored in your body and any of that. As the body is ready, as the energy is ready, it'll start to unfold and unravel. And it may be, like this one little corner of these threads starts in the first session, because that's what it's ready for, and when we can treat it in that way and really honor, like, we don't need to rush this, because it's, it might be uncomfortable to hold this, but there's nothing inherently wrong with this way that our body and our energy field has found to protect itself. So as it's ready to soften, we can just let that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last question, right now with COVID, we are not seeing clients in person, but can you talk about how you can do Reiki through distance healing? Or
yeah, so we use video chat to be able to connect and see each other's faces, and I can kind of walk you through how to set up a space that's going to feel comfy and cozy and able to relax and release in the way that you would in an office space. This energy that we're working with is not bound by time or physical location. This is something that, like, the current that is running around you, Chelli, right now is the same current that's running around me. There is that connection, even though we're in completely different places. And so really it's, and this energy is also very much so wants to help, so if you ask, like, it's gonna go where it needs to go. And it's really guided by intention, which could get into a whole other conversation about how powerful that is on its own. But yeah, guided by intention, that connection is just as strong in a distance.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that. I used to say, oh God, no, there's no way they can do that from a distance, but I've had many distance healings in my life and they work just as well. So I just encourage people to not be distracted by having to do it by video or distance.
Yeah, I still have a cynical part of my mind that likes to be like, really? And I'm just like, yes, really? Like,
yeah, totally.
Just tell that part to go shush.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about another offering that you have, which I love. Something that you've brought on is called Embodied Tarot. Can you tell us what the heck that is all about?
Yeah, what is that? So this is a way that I have found of working with the tarot. So my background is in yoga therapy, and I still offer that through Trilogy as well. So yeah, I've worked a lot with embodiment and how our bodies, like we were talking about with Reiki, hold all of these life experiences. And so when I started learning tarot, and this, initially was something that's like, oh, I'm just curious about it, I'm going to dabble in it. But then it started to have such a profound impact on the way that I moved through my life, that I wanted to go deeper with it. And I want to clarify, first of all, that, and there are still some amazing tarot practitioners out there that are operating in this way, where it's more of a fortune telling type thing, where you're going to, in some way, get to know your future of what's going to happen to you. The paradigm that I work with is that our future is not necessarily fixed and that we have a lot of choice in it. And so instead, the cards become a tool to tap into what spirit, what the universe wants you to pay attention to, wants you to focus on right now. And there may be a sense of like, because, this is coming to you or something like that, but knowing that we have this choice in it, which also adds, I think, a really important trauma-informed element to working with the tarot, where there is always choice and there's always a sense of empowerment in this, of how can these archetypes, how can the messages of these cards actually be not just presented from me, but also talked about and worked into your life in a way that is validating, that is encouraging, and that keeps us moving in the direction that spirit and our guides, or however you relate to that energy of the universe, is helping to move us.
Yeah.
The embodiment piece of it, to come back to that, is that I really found that for my own practice, when I was reading cards, so often it was like, my body wanted to have a response to it, you know? And sometimes it's as simple as a, like, you know what, you're right, I do need a drink of water. You know, like, because the tarot can be like very minuscule, and some of those messages just like, girl, wash your face, drink some water.
Right.
But sometimes it's like, you know, there's something happening in my heart that I need to tap into. And some of these somatic practices that I bring over from yoga therapy can help to move into that, so that you're not just receiving the message, oh, you need to address something in your heart, but actually being given an opportunity to start to move into that in session, which is where really transformational things can happen just in our time together, and actually can process and release, or start to point you in the direction maybe of what's next. And so I really think that's an important shift in perhaps the way that tarot is moving. And I have to say that my teacher, Lindsay Mack, it's the Soul Tarot lineage, has done a lot to bring the body, bring the nervous system into it. Not so much of actually incorporating the somatic practices, though, which is where I think this is kind of a new frontier of how we can quite literally and physically engage the body in the practice of receiving messages from spirit.
Yeah, totally. You know, and I think it's interesting. I've told some colleagues that we have, you know, that we had you coming on board and that you were going to be offering tarot. And some people were horrified that we would be doing that in a mental health practice. And, you know, I had two answers. And the first one was, many of the people that come through our doors already love tarot. And it just, you know, creates a space for them to do it with, you know, a mental health, emotional health, and, you know, a container to really just tap into their own intuition and their own sense of knowing, versus like going to some person out on, you know, on the street, let's do a tarot reading and here's your future. You know, to me, like, when we're doing therapy with people, a lot of our work is helping you learn to trust yourself, helping you learn to like pay attention to the messages. You know, we're always getting information from outside of us, whether it's scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, or, you know, looking for a quote that inspires us. We're always looking for that, and we take it in, it goes through our filter and helps us move in the direction that we need to move. And to me, tarot is just another tool of that, but it's actually based on archetypes. And if anybody knows anything about archetypes, archetypes are something that Carl Jung originally started working with. And essentially archetypes are certain symbols of humanity, let's say, that appear across cultures. And you can see archetypes in the Bible, you can see archetypes in fiction, you can see it in children's stories, you see it in our personalities all the time. And so you know, like an example is like, there's a hero archetype, or there's a victim archetype, there's the queen, the prostitute. There's lots of different personality types, and we work with that stuff in therapy all the time. Tarot is a way of putting it down in a picture on a card, with a different way of tapping into that. So that's kind of a skill on that. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
No, I love it. And I think in response, I pulled a card before doing this, because that's become a ritual for me. And I think if it's all right with you, I'd actually just like to walk through like this particular card that's here, and how like embodiment works into it. So first of all, I work with a pretty non-traditional deck because it's much more inclusive. There's definitely been some problematic issues of exclusionary images and that sort of thing in traditional tarot decks. So I use a deck called the Numinous Tarot, which is very very diverse and beautiful. So this is the card I have here. I'll hold it up to see if you can see that there. I don't know how clear the image is. So it's the archetype of death. The way that it's depicted in this is this woman actually with an open third eye and all of these flowers growing around her. And I think it's like, so for me, when that card came up today, for instance, there was a little bit of this sense of like, okay, yeah, it's good to remember that I'm going to die and to seize life, you know, like here we are, we're doing this. But there's also this sense of like, in order for anything to grow, we also have to let things release. You know, there has to be compost in the soil in order to nourish these really beautiful blossoms that are going to come through. And when we can see that clearly, then we tend to be less clingy to the things that used to serve us, you know? So this can be an invitation to, yes, accept the reality that we are all going to die. This common human thing is very real, but also consider how we might work with the seeds that we've planted by releasing things that that we don't want to grow anymore. How I might work with embodying this. So for me, and this is, you know, so unique depending on the situation, whether the cards are there. I drew this before coming into this. So for me, embodying it looks like really showing up and being super present in this precious, precious moment. How I might ask somebody else to embody it, though, is a pose like corpse pose from our yoga practice, what we do at the end of our yoga practices, where we just lay down and do nothing and be in that space of just letting whatever is percolating percolate and not try to force or fix or change anything, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that may just help illuminate for people, like when we're talking about the tarot in a little bit of a different way than fortune telling. And when we're talking about, you know, because that's one thing that I don't ever pull this card and think somebody's going to die.
Right. Good point.
You know, well, I think
freak out.
Everybody is going to die.
Right.
But it's not a bad omen to draw the death card, and it invites us into a deeper way of showing up to ourselves.
Yeah. It's all about metaphor. It's all about finding meaning in these things. And again, like to me, it's just this catalyst to tap into what we already know inside, or to open up blind spots for us that maybe, you know, we're struggling to see. So I love it. I can't wait to hear how people experience this with you.
Yeah, I can't wait to share it with more people.
Yeah, so if you guys are interested in booking a session with Alexi, you can find out more on our website at trilogytherapydenver.com. She offers Reiki standalone sessions and embodied tarot. You can also do a combination of things. And she also offers individualized trauma-sensitive yoga sessions as well. So she's amazing. That's all I can say. Hope that you're interested and can sign up for a session with her soon. Thanks, Alexi.
Thank you, Chelli. I appreciate you so much.
Same here.
Bye.
Thanks.